All right, so I guess we can start. So welcome everyone to the ECE Society's 3B technical elective session. I'm Ryan. My co-host is Manasi. I am the VP academic for the spring 2021 term. And Manasi will be the VP academic for the fall 2021 term. Our panelists are Chris Chalmers, Nathaniel Nowell, and Kate Zhao. If you look at the participants list, they are hopefully at the top. I guess, I don't know, introductions for our panelists?
Well, I can go first for this, I guess. My name's Chris Chalmers, graduated 2020. My curriculum was a bit different from what you guys have, I think, because I had to take most of the courses that are being talked about. They weren't electives. But I guess that gives me a holistic view of them all. Yeah, I guess also I've been out of school for a year now, so my memory may be a little off, but it should be fine.
I can go next. Cool. My name's Nathaniel. I just graduated right now in April, and for the courses that we'll be talking about today, I mostly took them last year in 2020. Actually, a lot of them I was in the middle of the winter term, which is when the pandemic hit. So it got affected a little bit by it, and I guess you guys won't have that. But the labs and stuff translated pretty well, so I'm excited to tell you guys what I remember. Thanks.
All right, I guess I'll go next. I'm Kate. I'm in 4A right now, electrical engineering. I've taken almost all of the EE electives here through an online term, unfortunately not in person, but because I only took them like last term in the fall, hopefully I'll be able to give some pretty good perspective.
Yeah, so the fall 2021 term is going to be basically online. There's a couple of hardware labs that will be in person, but other than that, it's all online. Yeah. So I guess some topics that we can discuss are the course content, the workload, how it's organized, the labs themselves, and some applications. This is going to be more of a free-form discussion, so you don't have to limit yourself to these topics. This is just stuff we suggested. So I guess with that said, let's get started. So our first course on the agenda is ECE 358, Computer Networks. Take it away.
So I guess I could start. I had Alfred, sorry, in my course. I thought the course was very well taught and the concepts are fairly easy to get a grasp on and somewhat applicable if you go towards DevOps roles more or even to embedded with networking as a focus. Although some of the content I think you could just get in a like IT boot camp type course. Labs are easy enough though.
I also took this course with Alfred. I gotta say, this was probably one of my favorite courses. I absolutely loved it. If you've ever even just wondered how the internet works and you're pretty clueless about it like I was, this course does an excellent job of doing this. So he has his slides that I think he bought from the textbook publisher because they look like they'll have the same like images and everything that you would find in the textbook, but he's like changed them up a bit and he's made them better and he's made them more applicable and he knows exactly what's on every slide and coming on, and he does a really good job of presenting it. He will have a really good grasp of the knowledge, and the TAs will be helpful. They actually had, when I taught it, Bernie Roll as the lab instructor, and you'll notice him for your third year and fourth year courses. He's kind of like a more advanced, more experienced lab instructor than you might be normally used to, and he's like very specialized in the stuff that he does. So he was really helpful, and they made the labs really interesting. The labs were pretty difficult. I wouldn't lie to you. You would kind of hope that you have a really smart partner to go with. But if I remember correctly, like a lot of the labs were about like simulating like small bits and pieces of the internet. The internet is divided up into 5 layers, or at least I think it's 7 or 5 or something like that, depending who you ask. And then the course will go through them progressively. He starts at the bottom layer, and he talks about how, like, this is similar to, you would have taken ECE 224. It's like they talk about like the voltage signals and how they go up and down, and how those are used to encode messages and like encode resets and restarts and other messages like that. And then you slowly start getting up higher, right? You go from that level, then you go to the transport layer, talks about TCP and UDP. They teach you about when some are applicable in some applications, like very quick scenarios like video game or video streaming, versus more accurate scenarios like when you're talking about email or things that need to be perfect all the time. And they'll tell you all the fundamentals about that. Like Chris said, you could learn it in an IT bootcamp, but I just thought that this was one of the courses that Waterloo, like with Alfred, was taught very well. Like, it was worth it to hear from him. And personally, I asked like tons of questions. And when it was in person, he threw chocolates at us for every single
Oh.
question that we asked. So
Yeah, his lectures are really well done, and the chocolate was a nice touch too.
yeah, very kind dude. I can't emphasize how much I asked him a lot of questions, and like he never hesitated. He was always willing to answer, and answered them well. He does use slides, like I mentioned, but he also uses the board to go through like more difficult examples. And the TA, at least that I had, was very passionate about it. And I saw a question that asked if there's hardware in the labs. There isn't any hardware at all. It's all up to you to simulate it. I don't know if this was like you can pick your own language, but I remember that we did it in Python, and you
Oh.
had to basically set up everything. You had to set up like a it wasn't like they gave you a template or anything like you might be used to in labs. It was like you set it up all yourself, I think. And then you have to show them that it works. Like you have to create like a you have to create like multiple producers and multiple consumers, which is probably a problem you've talked about. You need to send items in a queue, and the other person needs to pull them off, but they need to be done like in the way that they want it, right? Like you have to show that you did it in a way that fulfills the protocols that you researched though online, and that like you're satisfying. Oh, you set the restart bit and the start bit and the end bit and things like that. And the other parts of the labs were sometimes like, oh, there's this network utility, netstat, on your Linux machine. Run it and then put it in a Word document and explain to us what it's doing and why it's doing it. So yeah, like the description here does a very good job of it. I think it's very useful to know this, to be able to speak about it. I think it leaves you wanting more for sure. And if you want to go down this route, then you should definitely take it. If you're not interested in internet at all, you don't have to take it. But I think as a like conversation point, it's very important for computer engineers to be able to talk about this. But yeah, if you guys have any more questions beyond what I elaborated, feel free to ask.
One more question. So are the labs individual, or if in groups, are they in pairs or like groups of 3, groups of 4?
They were in pairs when I did it.
Okay.
I think in the rare occasion it was groups of 3. But also, I'll mention that this class, I remember, was huge, like absolutely huge, because it fulfilled the requirement for the CS people as well as the SE people. So many people tried to get into this course and actually didn't get in, because obviously you get priority as EC, but this is one of the satisfying courses. So it's quite a big class, quite a few people doing it. So I mean, at least you'll have help, but yeah, it's just a big class, I think, to point out.
Yeah, it was big for me too. And it was pairs as well for me. I think our second lab was actually done in C. or C++. So I don't know if they changed that to just be open to any language. Sounds like they did, which is nice.
All right.
Yeah, I definitely didn't do it in C. That would have sucked more, but
Yeah, I think it's like 500 lines. I just opened up my code from the class.
oh, nice. I guess I could do that too. But yeah, you upload your stuff to GitLab, like you guys might have used already, and then they just run. They do have some like automated tests, I think, too. I don't know how that works with everything. I think you have to like just provide an input and show them stuff. But again, like if anything doesn't work, you can just show the TA. One thing I will point out, I remember that, excuse me, when it went online, like Alfred had a bit of an issue like getting it working. Like obviously this isn't fair, right? This was literally 2 weeks after everything like shut down and went online. They've probably figured it out now. It's been more than a year, but it was quite difficult to start. They used like the bongo or the bongo class meet or something stuff, and it was pretty difficult for him to draw because he was really good at doing it in person, but in class, like online, he was trying to figure it out. But yeah, hopefully they figured it out for now. I see there's more questions. How long do the labs take on average? For us, they took quite a while. Like again, I said, like it'd be really nice if you have a really good partner for this course because the labs are pretty difficult. You have to think about a lot about like design, right? It's a lot more about like how do I design this part of my code to work well instead of just like solving the algorithm question, getting it over with. A week, yeah, but it sounds like it makes sense. But in terms of hours, like I would definitely say when this course had a lab, it was busy because there's only 3, right? It's not like compilers we're going to see later on. I think that had like 10 labs or 11 labs for us. Like this one takes the same, like the 3 labs will take the same amount of time as those 10 labs. So each one would definitely take like, I don't know, 8, 7 hours to finish, I would say. I think the first, like, there's definitely one that was harder than the other ones and one that was easier. I think the third one was easier, capture and analyze packets, because that was actually just using the Linux tools. But queues and networks delays, like it's not just experience the day, it's like simulate the delay. Like you have to create the delay yourself in the code, which was a really, really cool lab. And everything, all of them were really cool, but definitely difficult in their own right. Career sense, multiple access, coordinating, sharing of single link. I think we did that one too. But yeah, I would just say 8 hours and be safe with it. And how was grade breakdown roughly? I want to say it was both. I think it was kind of like half and half. Like there's nothing else besides the labs and the exams. So our midterm was really good, and that was because you know ECESoc exam bank is really helpful. But I think it was like 20 midterm, 30 exam, and labs 50, something like that. But he really wanted you to do well on the exams, and he made sure you were prepared for them, even though they could be tough and they could be difficult, especially from what I saw from the previous ones. For the final, I think like he will definitely throw everything at you and it'll go quickly. So you have to know your stuff by then. He was the only course that didn't have open book when that happened with COVID, but he straight up told us, he's like, I know this is stressful for you guys, so I guarantee no one will fail this course. Just do your best on the exam and we'll talk about it, anything that happens. So yeah, again, just points to a nice guy, but you learn a lot after you did it. So you can be grateful for that.
So the course, there's a bunch of course outlines on the ECE technical electives page. I'll put it in the chat. They've been updated recently. I pushed hard on getting up-to-date course outlines. According to the 358 in winter 2021, it is 20% labs, 30% midterm, 50% final, and the worse you do on the final, the more it's weighted. So
yeah, that sounds right. My mistake for that, but it definitely sounds right. Like you get readjusted if the final did bad.
All right, I guess we can move on to the next course, which is ECE 371, Radio Frequency and Microwave Circuits. This course used to be ECE 373 for the 2022s and 473 for the 2021s.
All right. Yeah, so I took this course in fall when it was online. So the summary is pretty much as it's described there. We had 3 labs. One was an introductory one and 2 were actual like design-based labs. So I think being in 4th year now and like having taken this is probably one of my favorite courses so far. There is a review of transmission line math from 375, but it's pretty much over in one lecture, and this course is almost entirely split into half of like passive microstrip circuit design and the other half is like design more active RF elements. The labs are really, really great. You use ADS, which is standard industry software. So it's very easily transferable, and it's not like, and there's a pretty big learning curve with ADS that this course helps you get over. So it's not as intimidating as seeing ADS in industry for the first time. Professor Mansour is also really, really great. He's really, really passionate about what he teaches. And when I took it with him in fall, our grade breakdown was split between like 2 quizzes, I think, midterm final and all the labs. So if there's any general questions about this, I will say this is one of the only few like microstrip and RF element design courses that you're gonna get. 432 is also RF circuits, but it's focused more on like analyzing the circuits themselves rather than designing like components to them, such as like mixers or like oscillators or even like filters and resonators. So this is probably like the only course that you're going to be taking of this nature. So if you're even like remotely interested in RF design, I would highly recommend this. Does this course require good knowledge of 206? Is 206 Calc 2?
206 is advanced calculus 2 for electrical engineers.
Okay, no, like the math in this course is pretty much like, there's a lot of matrices, but like you can use MATLAB for all your matrices, and then all the other stuff is like pretty much just division, multiplication, like basic arithmetic. There's barely any like calculus in here. All the complicated math you have to do can either be done with MATLAB or can be simulated. Like Professor Mansour isn't trying to test you on how good you can do an integral. It's how well you can design a circuit. How long did the labs take? So when I took it, the lab started in like late October, so very late into the course. I think, so they're done partners, 2 people per lab. And when I took it, like each lab took around probably 10 hours or so. Like you can just kind of like chip away at it over a week. And then you usually need to compile a report and like take screenshots of your plots and like ADS and everything. Oh, and there's pre-labs too, but the pre-labs are for like designing the circuits, whereas the labs are actually like simulating the stuff in ADS. Nathaniel's apologize. It's okay, this is an EE course right now. And I will say, I think, I know for people that have like, I have friends that have gone into RF design, and ADS is fairly commonly used in industry. And I think, I might be wrong on this, but I think this is the only course where you'll get like decent exposure to ADS. The only other one I can think of is 474, but that's like further down the line. Oh, and I should mention like, so I think I already said this, but like the first lab was introductory, the second one was designing a passive circuit, and the third one was designing like an active RF circuit. Oh, 375 might use ADS system. Okay. I took it when I was in person, so everything was still like very hands-on. You're using like spectrum analyzers. So I mean, I don't know how 375 has changed since then. But if you already know ADS from 375, it'll definitely help you with this course quite a bit.
Just as information, ECE 375 is electromagnetic fields and waves.
Yeah, 375 is like a lot more math in this course though. Cool, are there any other questions? All right, seems like this one. Seems like we can move on to the next course then.
All right. Next course is ECE 351, compilers.
So I guess I can start a bit with this. I had this back with VJ Ganesh. When he taught it, he tended to focus more on the theory aspect of compilers and the proofs. But the term before us and the other cohort, they focused more on the practical concepts. And I ended up using the little concepts I learned in mine a lot during my next co-op. So I can say the content is good. It just depends how it's taught, in my opinion. The labs are fine. We used Java to compile and parse, or parse and compile a mock-up of Verilog, I think, or something like that. They're fine. A little on the difficult side, the concepts, though. Nathaniel, do you have any input?
I think Nathaniel said he was in a meeting, so he might be kind of slow to respond.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah.
How long did the labs take? For me, they took a decent amount of time. They were kind of forgiving with the auto grading system. I remember it relied on local code to push if it passed or not. And I accidentally overwrote that code, so my code always outputted that I passed the automated test case. Which did screw me up for a later lab, but the TAs eventually found it with me and fixed it. And they said, don't worry about it. Yeah, they did take some time.
Hello. I'm in another meeting right now, so sorry if I'm scatterbrained, but this is another really good course. This is actually a course that you might never actually have to do ever because it's compilers and it's so specialized and people are like, I've already figured out compilers and very few engineers actually do them. But again, it's a good thing to know, I guess, a conversation thing, and you might end up needing to do something very specialized at your workplace. So it is good. You have to do all the labs in Java. I think it's like one of the best uses I've had for Java, but there's like I mentioned before, like 10 or 11 labs, and they all do a really good part of like explaining that week's concepts, and you apply them and you immediately use them. Really great satisfaction using them. They use IntelliJ to be able to run all the tests, and if you can pass the test they gave you, can pretty much pass the secret tests, is what I found. Like there's no reason you shouldn't get perfect on all the labs. And the exams are very theory based though, so like where the labs actually do a good job of teaching you like the applications and even the concepts, like the exams are very like kind of like not proofs, but like there's a way to prove that like this compiler will never fail or something, and so you have to actually like write it all out and do all the connections and do all the parts to do that on the exam. And I found people did pretty bad on the exam just because they kind of underestimated how hard it would be or just how theory based it would be. So definitely think that like the labs were fun, labs were exciting, exam was useful, but it can be kind of hard, especially if you just didn't bother to look at the theory part and you thought you just got a good grade on the labs and you thought you'd be good for the exam. So yeah, they were done individually. And hours, I would say like 3 to 4 hours a week on the labs. Probably 3, more so 3. And it's like, you know, that's the only thing most people did for the course, right? It was just get the lab over with and that's it. And just not keep going with the rest of it. So I would kind of gauge it like that. You do have to spend more time studying for the midterm and the exam, but if you just do the labs, then you're good.
for that part. Cool.
Also, there is value in knowing a tool, how a tool works that you use very often, which is programming languages. And even just having that knowledge is pretty good to know as well. I found myself reflecting on the concepts in that course a bunch for a lot of other things I've had to work on. Not always for directly programming, but for tangential projects and stuff.
Just as a side note, I'd like to welcome Daniel McCormick as another panelist. He's computer engineering 2022.
Oh, yes. Hello. I found with the compilers, if you really did well in like the languages like 208, 30, or 108, the proofs courses, then compilers was surprisingly similar. They did a lot of like the boilerplate and hard work for you, so it's pretty fun. Yeah, I think it's always LR1 parsers for VHDL. They added a few new labs at the end, like generating assembly, but those didn't seem too tricky.
I don't recall needing to know OS programming for anything. Because everything's mostly done in Java anyways, for the labs. I did have to learn the pumping llama like 5 times though. Well, you don't have to. Also, like a decent chunk of the course is lexing, which is basically just writing regexes. If you've worked with regexes before, like that's a decent chunk of the course, for me at least. You regex it to determine tokens, and then the tokens can be done to form structure and stuff like that. I think we spent like a good quarter of the term maybe on lexing part. I don't know, Daniel, do you remember how much you would have spent on lexing?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Somewhere between a quarter and a third. It's like one of the really big topics. There's optimization. Then in hindsight, it feels like everything else was incidental.
Sounds about right for me too.
No Hilbert proofs that I remember. Oh, they changed that. I don't remember getting that many practice problems for the final. Maybe it's a bit different because it was online and it was well, the end was online.
I guess if there aren't any more questions, we can move on to the next course, which is ECE 313, Digital Systems Processing. This used to be ECE 413 for the class of 2021, I believe.
Okay, yeah. So I took 413 last summer. I didn't take it with Professor Mikhailovich. I took it with Zhao Wang, but like all the concepts are pretty much the same. This is a very, very math heavy class. Like I'd say it's around 2/3 Fourier and integrals or mathematical transforms, and then about a third of like actual like digital systems, which I don't see listed here, so they might have changed the curriculum since I took it. But this builds very heavily on 207, especially in the parts of 207 that have like LTI systems and various transforms. This pretty much extends that and shows you various applications with those. There's no labs. The grading scheme was, I think, like it was a pretty hefty final, and the other stuff was divided into like assignments and midterms. It's surprisingly 318 had, so 318 is Communication Systems 1. It actually had less Fourier math and Fourier systems than this course. 2/3 might actually be an understatement as to how much math there is. So if you like it, go for it. I will say though, everything about this is very straight. Like from when I took it, everything was very straightforward and all the slides and everything were posted ahead of time. The assignments didn't take very long. And at least for Professor Zhao Wang, we had open book midterms and finals. So overall, this was like a relatively light course that wasn't very stressful as compared to like some of the other electives that I had. Oh, apparently the assignments have MATLAB problems. Okay, that's new. Like that wasn't the case last spring when I took it. Daniel, are you taking this course right now?
I am. I'm taking ECE 413 right now, yeah.
Okay.
I also have Professor Mihailovich. He does not record his lectures. This hopefully won't be a problem in the future. Oh, no, he started like very recently. So like the first few lectures just don't have anything. But all the notes are online. You know, if you've done math, you've done it before, right? I feel like it's like if you really were missing those like lower year calculus courses and signals and control systems, you sort of just go along this route. It's a good time.
I will say like some of the more theoretical concepts like discrete wavelet transforms, I have seen in like research-based co-ops, but like this course is very theory heavy. How was the grading? In my, like when I took it with Professor Wang, the grading was very, very lenient. Like you had a whole week to do assignments. You had like 24 hours and for the midterm and final. It was like open book everything. And as long as you pretty much got the numbers right and showed your work, like I think my class averages was like in the high 80s, low 90s. I guess Daniel can also speak to that right now.
The grading? Well, I actually haven't paid that much attention. The assignments are generous. It's like very relaxed compared to the harder things because it's so theory based. There's no, you know, build an operating system or your own processor, or, you know, you're doing a distributed system, guys, and you get to learn it all. It's like, I think it's nothing special as far as I'm aware. Aha, I pulled up the grading scheme for now. It says it's 25% project, 25% assignments, and 50% take-home exam. But, you know, it's take-home because it's remote. It's going to be interesting. But I think that's pretty standard, right, Kate?
Yeah. Like, especially with the more theory heavy courses, like I only know of a handful that are doing like timed exams. And I don't, this is like math heavy enough that like I don't think it makes sense to just like force you to just do a bunch of computations in like 2 hours. So
For sure. And like the medium for doing this sort of thing is also constrained, since you'll have to like write it all out, then rewrite it so it looks legible, and then take pictures and scan it during the exam, which is not enjoyable. Oh, one other thing, it's a really small class. Currently there's like 10 people taking it, I think.
Yeah, when I took it, there were like 9 people for whatever reason.
How did that affect the curve? Like, if like 2 or 3 people do really poorly, does he have to like really push the whole class up?
I think the benefit with small classes is that like if you're actually doing really poorly, like the prof would generally notice. And probably try to figure out what's going on. Like it obviously depends from prof to prof, but like most of the upper year EE classes are like super small, and the profs have repeatedly said they're not out to get people and that they want like averages in the 80s. Are there any good courses following this one in the DSP area? If you want general communications or something more math heavy, I'm taking 4 right now, which is communication systems 2, and it does dovetail with this course quite a bit. How is the math compared to 318? Let me finish answering the other question first. I think another one that could build on this is image processing, which is 417, but I haven't taken that yet, so I'm not very sure. I'd say depends on who you have for 318. I had Professor Usama Damon, and his classes were pretty math heavy, so this was comparable, but I've heard for some other profs, there's usually less math in 318. That being said, though, I took it when I didn't have 318 as a prerequisite, and the profs of 207 is like the big one you need.
That's 318.
Communication systems 1.
Oh, yeah, I didn't take it. So far, it's nothing surprising, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, ECE 318 is mandatory for all the 2023s, both computer and electrical engineering.
Oh, interesting.
And it's also been renamed to analog and digital communication.
Interesting, because it was mandatory for me as well. So that means they made it unmandatory and put it back.
For my year, for the CEs.
Oh, going good.
I will say though, like if you took like 318, and if you're interested in communications in general, like this course 318, 4 and 4, there is a lot of overlap between them. So like after a while, we just kind of get used to seeing the same stuff and the same like math over and over again, which is kind of helpful in that way.
I believe that the Fourier transform is first visited in ECE 205, Advanced Calculus 1, and then revisited in ECE 207, which was Signals and Systems. And personally, taking 318, it was revisited there. I guess it's going to happen again in ECE 313.
Yeah, you'll be tired of Fourier by the end of it. But like it's also nice because you have to spend less time doing a review.
I guess we can move on to the next course. This is ECE 356, Database Systems, Computer Engineering, with Paul Ward.
Oh, I wish we got Paul Ward. He had Wichita. Good times.
Yeah. Personally, I wouldn't recommend Paul Ward personally, but if you know SQL, like this course is pretty straightforward and easy. It's just translating to what the theory behind SQL really is. On that note, there isn't too much theory that actually gets examined with Paul Ward. It was mostly practical stuff like do this query on this database table. How do you join them? Put it in first or second normal or third normal form. The labs are pretty straightforward too. The culmination lab for us is you get to pick one of 3 options. I picked the one where it's recreate the Linux shell experience, like moving between shells, which basically just meant make a file system using a database, which is kind of cool. What about it? I didn't like how the course was taught, but Jeff Sarnett has all his course content on GitHub, and it's really good, his stuff. At the end of the term, I think there's 2 people, myself included, that actually went to class.
For us, we had a very different final project. we're supposed to build a prediction model to, given some stats about a baseball player, tell if they're a Hall of Famer. This was sort of stupid because like everything sophisticated was not like particularly effective. Those.
I'm saying that's interesting. We had that as our first lab, and then we really didn't have much else after that until our project. That's just interesting.
Did you have the like query over Yelp data set thing?
Oh yeah, that was lab 1, part 2. Paul Ward was not an organized man. I don't think he is either yet.
As online was sort of whatever. You're pretty dead on about, there's good notes. If you know SQL, it's there. And there's like a little bit of like the 208 set logic stuff, well, proof set logic stuff. But it's no big deal.
We have a
Oh.
question regarding the exams.
So I can comment Paul Ward's exams were mostly practical ones, if I recall. Like it was have some tables, have the data in the tables give expressions to extract some data, or organize the data to be in like normal forms. There was like a little bit of stuff about, it wasn't machine learning, how relations like building, I forgot. It was like right at the end of the course and just kind of squeezed in for us. Oh yeah, the course was still very valuable. Don't get me wrong, especially if you're going into stuff that would be heavy to use database stuff.
I didn't have an exam, so I'll let you handle this one.
Like I studied both because I often found Ward's slides confusing. Zarnet taught the course in his online notes backwards compared to Paul Ward, which I found much better. Zarnet started with what is SQL and then moved forward from there, which gave you a nice programming base to kind of lean back into. Paul Ward, if I recall, started with set theory. So if you're behind on the midterm stuff or whenever he does his midterm stuff, you might be out of phase. But if you just follow along but use Zarnet's as reference, should be fine. Groups of 3 for me.
Groups of 3 for me too.
Also preemptively, his grading scheme is wild. There's like 2 methods to like raise your grade. He first rounds it to the nearest nice number and then he turns it into a letter grade, and that also rounds it again to the nearest nice letter grade. Or he picks the best equivalent, I can't recall, but it was really weird, and you never actually got mark back from your midterm or your final. Like you didn't get to feedback from it. So he basically felt like he could just almost make up the mark at the end. Like I never got my final project's mark. And he was 3 weeks late getting the marks in too. I can't come on in class size 356 was mandatory for us. Daniel?
So for us, we had to choose between designing a processor, which sounds hard, taking databases, which sounds easy, and OS, which sounds hard. So most people took databases and something, so you weren't just getting like destroyed during the term.
Yeah, I think you could definitely learn the content on your own for the most part if you actually like stick to an online course that could teach it to you for the most part. Like I had to learn SQL and a bunch of stuff in my first co-op, and I did. That helped a lot with this course as well, so go hand in hand, I guess. Oh yeah, and in non-online courses, he would go on like tangents on tangents on tangents in class. He always came back, but it was often like a good 10-minute tangent before he came back. So I'm glad to hear that online he did better. I guess he actually could stick to the script, so to say. Yeah, we had one day on data mining. I think that's, yeah. And it showed up for easy, like 5-pointer question on the final. So I guess that was nice. But yeah, he ran out of time pretty much.
What the compound? Very few people took compilers in computer architecture. Databases and networks are definitely easier than comparc and compile. Oh, wait, OS, no. The organized stuff.
So I took all 4 because they were all mandatory except for computer architecture, because that was a 4th-year TE for me. Database is probably the easiest, followed by networks, followed by, for me, comp architecture, because I really liked it, and then compilers. But I like digital hardware a lot, so that's why I found comp architecture pretty chill.
Yeah, more or less. If you like comparc, it's probably easier. Otherwise, it's probably harder. Otherwise, it's like, you know, pretty much the same.
Yeah, if you don't like 327, I wouldn't, like, I guess kind of getting forward. If you don't like 327, I wouldn't recommend taking, what is it now? EC 320. It was 429 for me.
320 sounds right.
Yeah, the computer architecture course is now ECE 320.
I have one more question before we move on. So how would you rank all the CE courses in terms of how much time you would spend on their respective labs?
I'd say comp architecture probably tops it. Safely, because you're building a processor. It takes a lot of effort to actually code it all. The rest, I don't know, pretty similar for me, I think.
For me, it was like entirely experimental for all of our courses. So it's usually whatever Irene Huang is instructing is the most disorganized. So I'd say OS so far took a ton of time because there's just like numbers they shoved in. Comparc probably would have been next. Networks was not bad. Database systems would have been worse. There's a lot of electives backwards. Not sure how the other ones are to organize.
Again, I guess kind of getting into comp architecture here a bit, but it wasn't Verilog. For what that's worth.
Okay. I guess we will move on to the next course since we seem to be straying away from databases in general. So just as a note, ECE 320 computer architecture will be after this course. So this course is ECE 360, Power Systems and Smart Grids. It used to be called ECE 361, which did not cover smart grids. I think it was just power systems. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't taken this course, but a few of my friends did, and they all seemed to pretty like it. For our 3B technical electives, it was either RF or power, and some people just went with power. I've heard the labs in this course are really, really fun. They're not super time consuming. And then obviously it's very hands-on, very applicable. And one of the nice things about this course is that it leads to like pretty much all of the upper year power courses. So like electrical distribution systems, high voltage engineering, and also like power systems analysis. So like obviously if you're interested in power and you want to get into like high voltage engineering and things like that, this is one of like the more valuable courses you can take. I can't speak a whole lot to like the grading scheme or the labs or whatnot because I didn't actually take this course. I've only heard the secondhand, but from what I've heard, like people all generally seem to have a pretty positive experience. Do you need to know 260 well for this course? I think like obviously the prof would do review like the basic fundamentals, but I don't think you need to know like the back of your hand in order to do well in this. For class sizes, I know because I'm in stream 8, so 360 actually didn't even run in the fall for us because we didn't have enough people, and so they lumped the stream 8 and stream 4 classes together, and that was I think around like 20 to 30-ish people, so not a very big class size. Like especially for my stream, like the majority of people went with RF, which is 373 instead of this class for whatever reason.
So looking at the syllabus, which apparently is not, hang on, let me check the site. It's not, is it on the site? Okay, it is on the technical electives website. The grade breakdown is final exam 40%, labs 20%, and 2 quizzes for a total of 40%.
Yeah, and I've heard Professor Shot's apparently pretty good. Like I didn't have him, obviously, but like my friends all seem to like him as a prof quite a bit.
So I guess we can move on to the next course, which is ECE 320, Computer Architecture. So this used to be ECE 429 for the 2021s. I believe the 2022s have this as 320 as well.
So I could start with this, I guess. I had Hiren Patel for this course. I like the course and the content. Could definitely say his lectures were somewhat dry or super technical at times, but the content was usually what saved it all. If you like 327, this is a great extension to that course. The lab was really fun for me. I liked building that process, and it's come up a bunch in interview questions too. Most people seem to be impressed by that. And Hiren knew that, like he said, oh, we want to make Waterloo the Stanford of Canada. We need to do a nice project. Very knowledgeable person, by the way, Hiren. But I think the lab was definitely a lot of effort. If you have a good partner, it helps a lot, but you should know the content too. And the labs are basically leading up to the final project. They're one and the same. Each lab is just a milestone for the final project. Daniel, did you take either of these, or did either of you take this one?
No, sir.
I had it in person. Luckily I wasn't during COVID for me. Oh, I can't comment on the quality of the videos. Yeah, the labs were in pairs, paired to 327. 7 and 4s. Probably the same or a little bit more in 327. I don't think we were doing too difficult stuff in 327 for the most part. We had to do a Kirsch edge detector in 327, if I recall correctly. Be comparable to that, but there's the Kirsch edge one, but maybe 3 times as much effort, but split over the whole term. I think it was a prereq for us. Might not be anymore.
Was it optional?
I can't recall. I had my sights on taking it, so it didn't cross my mind. I think I knew an electrical that was in it that didn't take 327, but I can't recall if they had just the prof write off and say, yeah, it's okay. Sometimes that happens with courses. If you just get a prof to write off and say, I think you're fine, you don't need the prereq. You don't always need it. In fact,
So according to the undergraduate calendar, ECE 222 is the only prerequisite for ECE 320.
there you go. Like there is some overlap with 327. I think 327 is a great introduction to actually doing like larger scale digital hardware. And some of the concept of like a processor is covered in 327, so it's a nice jumping stone from there. Cause I think you learn about ALUs and opcodes in 327, and that's the fundamental part of a processor more or less. Oh, bunch of other stuff, but that's a big part. Project in 320 is great. I kept the Kirsch edge detector on my resume for the longest time. And that was also good, cause I had it in, I had 320 equivalent to 429 in 4th year, so I was using the 320 project for the longest time on my resume as my hardware project. I actually got a hardware job based off that, so. Probably about as useful. I'll definitely say I enjoyed, I think it was Natchkit that taught 327 for me, and I really loved his teaching, so.
Hi, so I'm interested in perhaps doing things with like CPU and GPU design. So would this course probably be like something that's really useful or important for those kinds of fields?
Yeah, I think it would directly be more applicable. Yeah. Yeah. 327, I was required to take 327, so. I guess that it sounds like it might be optional for you guys, or is this, are you the E, I guess?
For the class of 2023, ECE 327 is mandatory.
Okay. Okay, yeah, it was only
right,
for
yes.
C for us as well.
Yes, only for CE.
It would
Sorry.
definitely, like, the 320 would definitely be better for if you want to actually get into the design of processors and GPUs. I will say though, from industry experience, if you're actually designing the core of those things, you usually have a master's or higher. Smaller scale CPUs or general purpose units in general, yeah, you might be fine. Yeah, EC 327 was pretty straightforward, I thought. And Natchkit was a great prof. Very funny, very understanding with class deadlines and everything.
Yeah, ECE 327 is an elective for electrical engineers or electrical engineering students. It can be one of your technical electives for electricals. Okay, so I suppose we can move on to the last course. So ECE 331, electronic devices. Okay, so I just learned this yesterday. The ECE 331 that the class of 2022 and older have taken, it has now been turned into ECE 231. And the ECE 331 now is a completely brand new course taught by Professor William Wong. So basically, nobody has taken it. So I'm really not sure what to say here.
I can jump in. I will say, like, William Wong is like the default go-to prof for anything semiconductors and devices related, and he really, really knows his stuff. So having had him for 331, like, I can't imagine this will be too different from the original 331. There might be some more physics involved in it, or I'm not sure, there might be more 433 material. But like based off of the summary, it seems like not all that different from like when I had 331. So I mean, having taken pretty much all the devices course, or currently taking 433 right now. So yeah, I took 331 for fall 2020. That's correct, with Professor Wong. So this is a pretty like physics heavy course in the sense that like you know, you learn about like MOSFETs and all of those devices and circuits, but this really gets down to like the nitty gritty and like the very, very fundamental physics and like quantum mechanical level of how those devices work. The two BEEs took, okay, they took 231 with us, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure the content was the same. The course code was slightly different. Yeah. But I will say, like, if it's Professor Wong teaching it, he was like, obviously I took it online, but he was very organized, very thorough. And I took 209, which is the precursor to this, in person, and like the labs were very, very fun. Like, I'm obviously biased, but in general, I think device courses have really, really fun labs. And I don't think this will be an exception. The only like other additional further thing I can think of possibly being added to this might be some like of the fabrication physics and technology, which would come in the course after this. But that's also very like relevant industry knowledge. So in terms of semiconductor courses, if you like the fundamental physics side of things, it's not very math heavy, but it does test your understanding. This would be a pretty good course for that. Oh, and
So
oh, sorry, go ahead.
ECE 209 is electronic and electrical properties of materials.
Yeah, so for in our case, my entire class didn't remember much of 209, so Professor Wong spent like nearly a whole month reviewing that with us, pretty much reteaching it. But like it never, like the rest, he got through the rest of the material, but it never really felt like he was rushing for time. He was very, very well organized. And in terms of like grading breakdown, I remember we had like 2 quizzes, I think, that were worth like maybe 10% or 20%. The labs, obviously midterm and final. I will say I think the midterm and the final were timed, but it was within a 24-hour slot. So I think you had like 2 hours within 24 hours or something like that. And Wong's really, really great in office hours and on live sessions because he has a lot of industry experience. So he has a lot of really fun industry stories, and he'll go off in tangents occasionally, but he's very, very good. Is ECE 209 related to ECE? What is ECE 109? I did not take that.
I believe it's chemistry, but it's materials chemistry for engineers.
Okay, there was 0 chem in 209, and there was 0 chem in 331. If you go to 433, which is like semiconductor fabrication, yeah, there's a bit of chemistry there. But before that, it was all, there was a surprising amount of quantum mechanics. But apart from that, that was pretty much it. So, I mean, if you don't like chem, like, you'll be okay here.
So it seems like ECE 209 was replaced with ECE 231 in between the 2019 and 2020 academic years.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because I had 209, and I think the prof did mention a PhD student taught us, and she did mention that this was like one of the last offerings. It was either the last or one of the last offerings of 209. It was band diagrams. There's a decent amount of band diagrams, and there's the same plug and chug equations. I don't think this course is very difficult in terms of concepts. There's just the same equations you have to plug and chug over and over again. But like, it's obviously useful understanding how the devices work, but you'll be able to get away with memorizing formulas. And Wang has like a 7-page formula sheet or something like that. So you'll be okay in that sense. In terms of why they made curriculum changes like this, I can think of one of the guesses is that, like, I know for our cohort, a lot of people felt like there was too much material jammed between these two courses. And like some of it was not as relevant as it used to be, because the curriculum hasn't, like prior to my year, the curriculum hasn't changed in a very long time. So I think it's a balance of updating the curriculum to reflect like some more common industry trends, or like maybe teaching things more relevant to industry, and distributing the workload a bit better.
Another reason also was that a lot of, as Kate already mentioned, this didn't change for a very long time, and a lot of like alumni gave a lot of feedback as to like what they would have liked to change if they would redo ECE all over again. And this course actually was this change was one of the most mentioned ones, the fact that it didn't really correlate with like third year, and they wanted it to like be pushed to like another year, and basically that's what happened with this specific one.
Yeah. Like honestly, this course didn't even help a lot in terms of like my current TE, which is semiconductor fabrication. This was more math, and 209 was a lot more like physics and math more than anything else. So I mean, I'm glad to see that they are changing things so they are more relevant to the students.
Okay, so I guess we can move on. This was the last course. So if you have any last minute questions, or if the panelists have any last minute comments, thank you all for joining. This event was very, very popular, surprisingly so.
Thank you for all the information. I just had one last more general question. Since we're only allowed to take 3 of these technical electives in 3B, do you know if we're allowed to take maybe a 4th one in our 4A or 4B term of these 3B electives?
They would be off sequence, right? I have friends taking 358 right now. So I guess so for some of them.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to, so in terms of taking technical electives that aren't on the lists, it's so first I would suggest going to the ECE department's technical elective website. I just posted it in the chat. And yeah, contact an academic advisor for this kind of stuff. As for taking courses on co-op, well, since everything is online, that's actually easier now. And you can take, you can just like take courses that you feel are fun and interesting without it having actually go to your degree. Obviously, if you do that for an elective slot, then you're going to have to, like, it's additional courses, right? It's so I guess if there aren't any more questions, there's been some chatter about NSCs in the chat and options. So I would like to remind everyone that the ECE Society is hosting another technical elective session for the 4B electives this Thursday. And for there's going to also be a third technical elective session for the 4A, for 4A, and that will be in late August. There's a question in the chat. Excuse me. So, for AI/MSci options, was it easy to do the options with normal course selections, or did people have to overload? Yeah, so as Kate said, there are a bunch of MSci courses that can count as technical electives. In terms of there is a limit though. I think a maximum of 2 courses can be counted as, like, a maximum of 2 non-ECE courses can be counted as technical electives. I don't know much about the MSci option. For the AI option, I've actually been personally looking into that, and it seems like it'll be easy to do. You're just more restricted on the 4th year technical electives that you're allowed to take. And MSci 442 is required, so that's a complementary studies elective, a CSE, in the list A, I believe. And there is a, so there is the requirement that at least one of the courses had to be from the Faculty of Math. So that's the CS courses, the STAT courses, the CO courses. And yeah, getting approval for CS courses is hard, as Nathaniel wrote. I think the STAT 341 course is one that doesn't require any extra prerequisite courses from the math faculty, any of the departments.
One thing I do want to mention before everyone leaves is that based on the survey that happened last semester for your 3B courses, you will be automatically enrolled in them I think in July, and then starting August 3rd, you can then request changes depending on this elective session or any other information you have, or you just want to like change your courses again, then you would submit like another change request and move to like different courses. But other than that, you don't need to do anything right now. Dave Harris like basically just said to like re-mention that. I completely forgot, but here it is. So yeah, don't worry. You might have to like, depending on if you want to take electives or not, you might have to like contact ECE to like see how the your electives are happening. Most of you should be able to log in through Quest, but there have been a few issues that a few people faced in terms of like just enrolling into elective courses. So like your not the core courses that we're talking about right now, not the technical electives, but the CSE, NSC, etc. So if you have issues and you can't log in within, I think the due date is like the end of this month or something, contact ECE Advising, because those courses are, I know that they had a section for that in the survey last semester, but they will not enroll you in those other courses, just the core courses. And your core courses, which is everything that we mentioned in this session, you will automatically be enrolled into them in July, and starting August, you should be able to request changes. And even if you can't request changes, or if you are still unsure in August, you can still continue to request changes until September 22nd, I think. So there's that.
The course selection period ends on the 21st of June. Yeah, so one of the issues, I personally had one of these issues. The email with the survey or reminding us of the survey, I did not get. Like it just never showed up in my inbox at all. And I only discovered that that email existed because one of my friends mentioned it. So yeah, feel free to contact either me, the VP of Academic, or the department if you're having these issues.
If you do have that very specific issue that you did not fill out the survey last semester at all, then you might want to contact Dave Harris immediately within this week, because I know that they're starting to enroll you into core courses this month and you will see them next month. So if you have that specific issue, definitely contact Dave Harris directly with just the message that you have not received the email and you did not sign up, because it's just much easier for them to do it right now than try to enroll you completely in like August 3rd. And yes, Dave Harris is great. He responds very quickly too, so that shouldn't really be much of an issue. But yes, there's that. But in case you do want to change courses, please wait until August 3rd. I know last semester they did receive a bunch of emails immediately after the survey ended that people wanted to switch. And they tried making the switches then because it was like quite immediate, but now they're not accepting such requests anymore. So wait until August 3rd and then you'll be able to switch. And because it's only 8 courses, most of them should be available. They most likely will have spots, mainly because it's online as well. Yeah, but in the future, do fill out the survey. We'll keep you more updated and informed this time because we have more control over when the survey is coming out and when it needs to be filled in and when the due date is, and etc. So it'll be a little bit more organized this time. So everyone should receive an email or notifications from either like ECE Society or the department regarding the 4th year surveys for the future. Oh, and also if you guys have any feedback regarding what you would like in the future sessions, like either contact the other VP academic or myself as to like if there's anything else you would like us to do in these sessions. What survey is this? So last semester, a survey was sent out to class of 2023 as to what 3B elective courses they would like to take. This was not like a mandatory survey, which is the reason why a lot of people didn't see it. A lot of people missed it. A lot of people didn't fill it out. If you're not a class of 2020, not in the class of 2023, then you probably did not receive the survey. If you are, then you should definitely contact Dave Harris. And yes, we will consider renaming the survey. Yes, it was an interest form. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people didn't fill it, because they were just like, it's okay, we don't really need it. But apparently you do need to fill it out if you want to be enrolled. So it'd be really nice if you guys were a little bit more mindful in the future, but that was not on us. It was on the department. That was not really mentioned to us because of the whole online situation. But for fourth year, if you do receive an enrollment interest form, do fill it out, or just survey or whatever, fill it out.
Okay, so I think we should wrap up. I'd like to thank our panelists for coming and discussing and answering your questions. I'd like to thank all of you for attending. We had good turnout and good interest. And I'd like to thank Manasi for helping me out, helping organize this event. And yeah, I think for the future, I will recommend that this event be continued every year, especially since the curriculum keeps changing.